Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
So this podcast is a generic business podcast. We can talk to any company in Dubai, CEO and founder, any industry, any level. Yet we tend to find the most interest and the highest listenership on startups. And it just goes to show how dynamic this city is, how fresh ideas come together, and how people go about setting up a business here and attracting funds and creating a market and growing their business really. And it's so interesting what's happening at the moment. And the guest today is, it's a brilliant story. It's a pandemic idea story. Someone who's obviously well educated, worked with big companies, and has this really good idea and is executing it really well. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Morning, welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week I'm joined by Nour Sabri, the CEO of BorrowMe. So they are a Dubai-based startup. They allow users to rent virtually anything as opposed to buying it, while simultaneously giving the owners a method of gaining extra income, sounds really good, for everyday unused items in their household. So today we're going to talk about the idea, how it came about, how Nour and his team built BorrowMe, BorrowMe's market placement and the competition, the industry as we always do, and then plans for the future. Good morning, Nour.
Good morning, Richard.
Thanks for coming in. Nice to meet you in person.
Thanks, pleasure to be here.
Great. So yeah, BorrowMe, I guess it's a self-explanatory name. It's got borrow in the name. So can you tell us a little bit more about the concept?
See, the concept came to me, my ex-boss's wife, a couple of years ago. He was telling me that she was making a decent income, monthly income, by renting stuff that they bought for their son's birthday. So they went to Dragon Mart, bought tables and chairs, and then basically they set up the party. They parked the items on their garage. It was sitting there, and she had the idea, you know what, let me put it on the Facebook community groups for the Meadows community in Dubai. And sure enough, people showed interest. So every weekend, she was basically renting the items to neighbors. And he was telling me she was making between 3,000 to 5,000 dirhams. She also purchased additional items, and she became the go-to person for party and event rental in the community. And then fast forward, the pandemic happened. And I remember March 2020. And they announced at my work that we are not allowed to go to the office anymore, and I needed an exercise equipment to stay fit because the gyms were closed too. Sure. And so I looked for a site or a company that gives you these items to rent or to lease for a period of time, and I couldn't find any company in Dubai that offers such items. So I ended up buying an item off Amazon, like an exercycle, which still sits in my house. And then the idea of BorrowMe came to me. And so I decided to invest on developing the business model, developing the concept, and seeing what's out there around the world. And sure enough, there were a few of my competitors. Luckily, they were dominant in Europe and London, also the Americas and the Netherlands and Switzerland. Very similar concepts that enable anybody to basically access to items they need. Yeah.
Amazing. I love this. Another positive entrepreneurship story out of the pandemic. Yeah. So you see a need that's not there, that's not catered for, and you come up with an idea. So essentially now is the company 2 years old, and how does it work in a transaction? Do you have assets? Is it a marketplace where people borrow from other people?
That's exactly it. It's really a marketplace. It's a platform that allows the borrower and the lender to meet. And so we do not own any asset. In fact, I have uploaded 5 of my personal items into BorrowMe.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we have more than 1,500 items since the launch date, which was in August last year. So we're, let's say,
Nearly a year,
nearly a year. But so far, it's been quite popular, and people have the option to rent items. I also enabled the selling and buying of items. So you have the item, you have full control whether you want to rent it daily, weekly, monthly, or also offer it for sale if you want.
Yeah, secondhand items. 1,500 items. What type of things? Is it, you know, did it come from that party events things, or is it anything in someone's house? From
basically anything in anybody's house. So BorrowMe caters for any item, but not properties and not cars, because there are dominant sites that offers these items, which is the cars and the properties.
Yeah.
But anything else you can think of, you can actually upload it on BorrowMe.
And what are you seeing? Like from the 1,500 items, what's the breakdown? What are the type of things you see?
You know, clothing seems to be quite popular, especially high-end, clothing material, whether it's dresses, handbags, and the like. So we have a big range of clothing. So people wants to rent out their designer dresses and the likes. Electronics seems to be quite popular as well. Kids and baby products are very popular as well. And the reason why it's popular is, you know, in the UAE, there's a lot of tourists that come to the UAE. So in 2019, for example, 19.5 million tourists entered the UAE, right? Mostly in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. But imagine families with children, kids, they need strollers, car seats, high chairs when they stay in Dubai for like a period of time. So all of these items, they cannot really ship it from their home country to Dubai. Some of them are forced to buy them, right? And so a platform like BorrowMe that allows those tourists to access items when they're here is also quite popular.
Okay.
There's another category which is related to camping and outdoor and sports, which is quite popular as well. Imaging is very, very popular, especially around high lenses and high-end cameras. So imagine, somebody like an artist or a photographer that they have a project and they need a specific lens or specific imaging products for a short period of time. These items are super expensive.
Yeah. But in that, of all the categories you just mentioned, Nour, that category actually has an industry around it, doesn't it? Like they have rental stores for lenses and things, whereas the other items are usually typically in people's homes. But this is a way for people who have their own personal hobby cameras as well to generate revenue from them.
Correct. So a lot of these items that I mentioned, even for baby, like car seats and strollers, there are dedicated sites that offer those items.
Okay.
But BorrowMe gives you the flexibility to search for any specific item. And so, you know, since we launched, we have onboarded more than 40 businesses in the UAE alone.
Oh.
So most of these businesses that offer these items some of them are on the platform already. So when you're searching for a specific item, you find a mixture of items available by individuals, some available by businesses, and you can filter by the proximity to where you're based, proximity by price, condition, age of the items as well. So it gives you that variety and flexibility to pick and choose whatever you need. And we want to develop I wanted to develop a one-stop shop for items rental.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really smart. Okay. So, typically with marketplaces, you obviously need two parties to come together. So, clearly the idea is there, but how do you get people to know about uploading their things? Because people typically might want to, in Dubai, they might want to sell secondhand things on Dubizzle, or they might want to, go elsewhere. But the reality is there isn't a behavior around borrowing as much. So how do you have to change behavior, or do you think that people naturally want to do this?
That's an excellent question. I think marketplaces is a very tough business to be in, and because you have to look at the supply and the demand. So equally, you have to look at the supply and demand. But let me give you a couple of examples of very popular marketplaces that we use on daily basis. The first one is Uber. So Uber, when it first was created, started in New York City. the taxi drivers were against it. People were against it because people trusted the taxi drivers more than the individuals that they will be riding them around New York City.
Yeah.
Well, all people came to realize, and the government specifically, that Uber drivers have reduced the driving percentage by quite a lot, by a significant amount. And they realized that, providing an affordable transportation for individuals is really key. It was also good for tourism, from a tourism perspective. Hence, the government really pushed for Uber to become a successful business.
Yeah.
Another example is the Airbnb example as well. So Airbnb, again, when they started, they really, a lot of the hotels dislike them. The communities dislike them because imagine in your building community, strangers coming in and occupying some of these apartments, right? So there was a lot of noise around it, but also very soon, countries and governments started to realize that actually Airbnb boosted the tourism industry in those countries and allowed tourists to enter the country and stay in an affordable accommodation, flexible accommodation. Hence, this mindset has changed. And the mindset of the sharing economy is actually growing at 30% year on year, according to PwC. So it's really a growing segment. And it's expected to grow quite a lot. The sharing economy in the UAE, specifically in the UAE, we're quite blessed by, fortunate by having accessibility of shopping and items and this and that. However, there's a looming financial recession happening, and people are thinking twice before making certain purchases. And a platform like BorrowMe that allows you to rent these items rather than buying them, it's also quite good. And sometimes, you need items, not necessarily because you want to buy them, but let's say you're fixing something in your apartment and you needed tools or a ladder, but you don't have the necessary storage space. So what are you going to do? You need to borrow it from somebody to complete this project and return them once done. So it fits multiple purposes.
Definitely. I can see the benefit of it. So talking a little bit about how the company came about, what's your background? Had you done startups before? What could you leverage on skills wise that suits this?
Yeah, you're going to bring me back to my, so I basically I'm originally from Iraq, and then we immigrated to New Zealand in the mid 90s. So finished 2 years of high school, and then I went to University of Auckland to study computer science. Yeah. And then I started my journey in tech consultancy. So I worked for a number of companies, including PwC, Ernst & Young, Bain & Company, and also tech companies like IBM and HP. So I accumulated a lot of the tech experience. And then I was fortunate to finish my MBA to study the business side of, operating a business and the likes. And while I was at university, I created a couple of companies. One I sold, which is basically related to SMS text message reminders. And another company called metalandsteel.com, which is still operating. And it's a platform for the metal and steel industry. It's like the Alibaba for the metal and steel industry. And from that platform, I learned a lot about the marketplaces and developing the marketplaces and the technology and making sure our marketplace becomes successful. And so when I came to BorrowMe and I had the idea about the marketplace, historically, I had the technology capability. I also developed the marketplace, and I wanted to come and develop a successful marketplace for this region.
Yeah, fascinating. So, and the work that you were doing was mainly as a consultant at the time of the pandemic. Is that what you were doing?
Yes, absolutely. So I was working for IBM in the time of the pandemic. And then, when the idea came to me, I decided, let me take a break. Let me focus on BorrowMe. And so, I made a lot of the decisions initially, and I'm a single founder. Although investors love a company with a number of founders and co-founders. However, I thought to myself, if I start the company alone, decisions will be made quite quickly, and I don't need to consult and wait for people's approval. So very quickly, purchased the BorrowMe.com domain very quickly I engaged a tech company to look into developing the technology. I made tons of mistakes initially, and I'm going to tell you more about these mistakes later. But it's a journey. It's just the beginning. The company is less than a year old.
Yeah.
And it's exciting stuff ahead. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. You know, I've heard of these kind of companies in other markets over the years, and you know, it's one of those ones, isn't it, where you go, well, why aren't they taking off really in Dubai, right? Especially in a transient place, and people do tend to spend a lot in malls and things like that. So people have a lot of stuff at home, you know. And that example of the lady in the garden with the events is just interesting, right? So it's a great idea, but obviously it's hard to execute. And it's interesting your approach that we haven't had many of that where you're an individual founder, so you make faster decisions, because that's super important at the start. But you seem to be making the right decisions. We talk about the mistakes, but you know, BorrowMe is a strong name. You have the .com, you build a marketplace. So when you launched last year, did you raise funds then, or are you trying to sort of make it bootstrap and, you know, trying to, I assume you take a percentage cut on each transaction. Is that the business model?
Yeah, so in terms of the investment, I invested from my personal savings. And then I got an investor, an Egyptian person who's a consultant at PwC in Saudi.
How did you find that investor?
So this he was my classmate when I did my MBA. So I told him about the concept. He loved it. He came on board. Now he wants to bring 2 PwC partners to participate. Now the decision is like, how much equity can I give away? And I don't want to give a lot of equity. I just I need some money to keep me going for the next 6 months, because I know the valuation and the business will grow quite significantly. So I don't want to raise a lot of money and give too much equity at an early stage. And also I'm in the process of onboarding a co-founder. And so that co-founder will take a percentage of the business as well. Now, talking about the business model. So there are primarily 4 business models that I have in mind. First of all is the tapping on the tourists that enters the UAE. Fortunately, I signed an agreement with the largest Airbnb management company in the UAE. It's called Air Sorted.
Okay.
And now they rebranded themselves to as Host, and they have around 300 properties in Dubai alone.
As the name Host.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's a unicorn from the UK. So they have an office here in Dubai. They've been operating for the past 4 years. They're doing quite well.
Yeah.
And ideally, I wanted to onboard a number of these Airbnb management companies.
Yeah.
I also wanted to onboard the big hotels chains in Dubai. And Dubai has a lot of in the UAE in general has a lot of hotels. Dubai.
In what respect? That they would have items left over from people, or what? How would they be of use to BorrowMe?
No, that's an excellent question. So imagine a tourist that arrives to an Airbnb in Dubai Marina.
Okay, they need things.
So part of the induction pack, the Airbnb management, or even the hotel that sends to these users. So some items they cannot be supplied by those hotels and Airbnb companies. They have to be leased externally. So part of the induction pack, it says, for additional items that you may need while staying in Dubai, visit this site. And I wanted to create a page that has the fast moving, or the items that the tourist needs, right? Whether they're coming for partying or site visits or camping or, family or whatever. So they can pick and choose the items that they would like to rent. Then it takes you to the, where is your location, the duration and payment, and the items will be available to you when you come and arrive in Dubai. So you can use them and keep them there once done.
Amazing. Yeah. That's really smart. Has that been done elsewhere, that in terms of hotels and Airbnbs?
I haven't seen it elsewhere.
It's a smart partnership strategy.
And I feel that this, of course, these items that we're going to provide to these customers, they're not going to come from individuals. They're going to be coming from businesses for reliability purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we get the order, we send it to the business will ship the items to the users and pick it up when it's done.
So those 40 businesses that you've partnered with, so they'll be supplying the Airbnbs in the hotels. So that's the kind of first business
model. Yeah, that's the first business model. The second business model is charging 20% on each transaction.
Okay.
Although I started BorrowMe as a freemium and still for free, but in the future, I'm planning to introduce 20% on each transaction. And that 20% will also include an insurance coverage. So all the items will be insured automatically. In case any damages, losses, or whatever, you can file an insurance claim and you can get the reimbursement back.
Is that 20% a large number? Have you compared it with others, or?
Yeah, I've compared it with there's a couple of big players in the Americas and in Europe, and some of them charge even more than 20%. But I thought 20% is fair for the services BorrowMe provides.
Yeah.
An additional revenue stream will be items delivery. So partnering with a delivery company like Kareem Box for smaller items or Elite for bigger items and the like. So having the ability to deliver the items from the lender to the borrower and vice versa is also one of the items that we are looking at launching.
And if you had funding, then you could have your own fleet of hiring, make things even faster of delivery.
Actually, I'm following the Airbnb model. So the Airbnb model, they don't provide services, but they are just a platform.
Yeah.
Meaning, I just want to allow the
people decide how to
decide, and then allowing those additional services providers to be sitting on top of the BorrowMe,
and they would just pay to be there. So that's a business there.
Exactly, and just focus. My job is to focus on creating a very successful and a seamless experience for my users.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, and the fourth way of making money.
Yeah, the fourth is a top secret one. It's really spinning BorrowMe to be a fintech.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, something related to leasing and the likes.
Yeah, very good.
Providing plugins just a tip or a hint, providing plugins for merchants to do something.
Merchants, there's a clue. Okay, interesting. Well, fintech is hot right now, and it'll probably help when you're raising money because people seem to buy into it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So going back, I kind of asked two questions at once, but the structure is an interesting one. It is hard to decide, isn't it, how to go about fundraising and structure. So, are you calling this sort of your pre-seed or seed round that you're looking for these two partners, or?
Definitely pre-seed.
Okay.
And so pre-seed moving into seed. And I think the money that I'm going to be using is going to go through Arabization of BorrowMe.
Yeah.
So at the moment, BorrowMe is only in English, and I'm planning to Arabize it and launch it in Saudi and Egypt.
Very good.
The reason for this is because the Saudi market is a huge purchasing market. The population is 4 times larger than the UAE. And Egypt is 105 million population. And Egyptian people tend to go away for summer for 2 to 3 months outside of Cairo and the major cities into the coastal sites. So while going away for 2 to 3 months, they need the PlayStations, they need the equipments to get them going, right? So providing a site like BorrowMe that allows the large Egyptian population to access items when needed.
Yeah, fascinating. It definitely is a good business model.
Thank you.
And interesting to see how it progresses. So you've done most of this yourself, sort of bootstrapped, and how have you done the tech? Are they in Dubai, the people building it, or have you outsourced that?
Yeah, tech. Although I'm a techie, so first mistake I made, I invested
mistakes.
invested $10,000 on implementing BorrowMe on Shopify.
Okay.
So Shopify is like an e-commerce site, really made for merchants and users to upload items to sell. And so I wanted to create an MVP on Shopify. So I hired an Australian company that uses developers from Asia. A reputable company. And so 5 months down the line, with an investment of $10,000 and regular calls and stuff, I figured out that the experience is not there. The experience of you uploading an item and then deciding on daily, weekly, monthly price, different price for renting the item. also having the ability to sell the item as well is not within Shopify. And so they tried to create all of these forms, external forms from Shopify, integrated within Shopify, but the experience was not seamless. You had to continuously go out from one page to another page to do certain activities, and it wasn't pleasant. So I decided to
Scrap it.
Although I love Shopify and I'm a big fan, and I think any startup that wants to enter the e-commerce space in terms of selling items, they should start with Shopify.
Yeah, it's more of it's great for e-commerce, isn't it? It's not necessarily a platform like what you want to do.
Exactly. So I went shopping, and I went to Poland, and I interviewed multiple companies in Poland, and I picked one company. It's called IT Craft.
Yeah.
And this company is actually a 100-person organization, fairly small, ranked in the top 3 in Poland, in the top 20 in Europe.
Wow.
The rate was quite good, more expensive than going to to India or to some parts of Asia. Definitely more expensive, but I felt comfortable with the team, and then I went ahead with the IT Craft, and they have done an excellent job in terms of the user experience. And they continue to challenge me and challenge my business model. So one of the things they came and they said, BorrowMe is about borrowing, lending and borrowing. Why do you allow people to sell and buy? And they confused the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Because that's the core of my model. And so for 2 weeks, I was thinking and continuously talking to people about, shall I allow people to sell their items or not? And the decision I arrived to is yes.
So you keep the name as the hook and the BorrowMe and the idea, but
Yep.
if the transaction, if you want to keep, it's like leasing a car, falling in love with it, wanting to keep it.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amazing. So, but the scope for those guys, we always try to understand outsourcing tech, because part of building a startup is iterating, A/B testing, figuring things out, reacting to users, where sometimes founders, like you, even though you're a techie background, will outsource the initial build. But then do you get it handed over? Do you go, hey, like the Australian crowd, do you go, I want UX, UI, I need an app, I need a website. And then it gets handed over. And many founders kind of make the mistake of thinking, that's it now, I've got a lovely thing and I never need to do anything with it again.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not true, right?
That's not
so
true.
are they sort of an extended team partner on an ongoing basis for you?
Yeah. Actually, ongoing enhancements will never end. Somebody borrowed something from my sister, and she called me and she said, I'm confused. The notification confused the hell out of me. Blah, 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 blah. So I decided, you know what? Like, if my sister knows about the business and she's confused, other people are confused. So let me just kick on another enhancement round. So I went to IT Craft. Because it's a startup and it's very early stages, and I wanted to keep the cost as low as possible with minimal intervention. So it's like a self-taught kind of a system that basically allow people to do everything by themselves with minimal operational expenses from my end. I have, and this is a good, tip for startups. I have so far maybe more than 30 projects, independent projects, with sites like Upwork and Fiverr. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's like manpower sites that have different skill sets.
They're marketplaces for developers, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for my search engine optimization and my if you type in borrow items, borrow things, borrow stuff, we are number one.
Yeah.
Globally, we are number one.
Because you got a good SEO person on Upwork to help it for you.
Exactly. So I went to Upwork.
I think people listening will want to ask who that SEO person is.
Actually, no, they can. Actually, it's on Fiverr. Fiverr with the double R in the end, Fiverr.com. And so I went in there. I searched for a search engine optimization expert, and then I looked for somebody who has done 300 of these projects. And their star rating is above 4.7 to 5. So that's, they always deliver high quality. And I looked for somebody within my budget, and I secured the resource for the entire year. And this guy has been delivering. His name is Ammar. He's there with the MMAR. He's, I'm promoting him, and he's all the way in the US, right? But he delivered a very nice project. But what I've done is like for my video, for my logo, for my content, for the sites, for some of the press releases. So anything you can think of for, data collection, market analysis, everything that you can think of.
Paid social,
I've
things
used
like
these
that. Yeah.
resources, and they cost a lot less than hiring people full time in the UAE, because Dubai, the cost of living is quite high. If you compare the cost of living in Dubai, then the cost of living in some parts of Asia, it's probably 80% higher.
Yeah.
So when you compare apples to apple, because it's the same skill set and same expertise,
Yeah.
you are paying somebody which is with an 80% discount than hiring somebody in Dubai.
Yeah.
Of course, the plan is to, and I do have a full-time member with myself, and I'm also in the process of onboarding a co-founder, and the team is growing. And for the expansion to Egypt and Saudi, I need to hire a team in each country. But at my early stage, I'm comfortable where I am. My cost is quite low, and I'm still evolving the business and growing the business.
Yeah, it's really impressive how you've done that. And, I think those websites, those marketplaces, they are kind of like the Airbnbs and the Ubers, and they help people who wouldn't necessarily have income, they connect the world, right, with skills and things like that, which is amazing. And it's so interesting to see how companies approach them. It's almost the only option really for startups with no funds, because they can't hire people. But then it's like, what if you can hire people? Then what role do those companies play? And some of the big corporates can't even get permission to be on those platforms and things like that. And I think one of the things we found on that side is, if you hire someone, with digital and everything, something is so multifaceted, so many skills are needed today. And if you hire someone that can't do 10 things, rather than causing tension with that person or feeling that they're not brilliant and a good team member, you could take 3 of those tricky skills off them or whatever, put it in Upwork and let them go about their job. Like it can take a lot of pressure off tricky skills. Like if you understand development, right? Like there's so many different languages, there's so many different things.
And continues to evolve, right? So, the in the tech worlds, technologies evolve very, very quickly. And so, and then if you're launching a mobile app, then you have to worry about Android versions, Apple iOS, and even on the web. And so there is a lot of security that needs to happen behind all of these developments. There's a lot of maintenance and ongoing maintenance and support. And so having, it's not wrong to have an internal team to develop. And then, at some point you need a dedicated team to be working with you full time on this journey. But at my point, and the way I developed, BorrowMe today, it requires, some consulting capabilities that sits outside of the region, and I can reach out and get, for example, consulting support. IT Craft, I just signed an agreement with them just recently that includes 50 hours of a UX designer, a senior UX designer, and 160 hours of a senior developer. And so I can use these hours within the next 3 months to make enhancement, right? And so they are not on my books. I don't need to pay them salaries. Whenever I need to make certain enhancement changes, I reach out to the company and they provide the resources to do it for me.
Yeah. And the other benefit of that, so you use the platforms and then you work with a partner development agency and they're used to that and managing hours. But you can then learn by what skills they're doing for you for the hire. So you almost can shape your future team based on what.
Absolutely.
It's really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, amazing. So any other mistakes, Nour?
So the mistakes I made as well is I didn't onboard a co-founder from the beginning that specializes in marketing. Like the tech itself is important, but marketing it's equally and even more important to get the name out there. Unfortunately, I haven't done a lot of marketing. I'm not a marketeer and I have limited marketing skills apart from the search engine optimization. But the co-founder I'm onboarding, he's a marketing guru. He has all the tricks around growth hacking and what to do to grow to get the name out there. Targeting, for example, he he wants to target the younger generation.
Yeah.
So the younger generation, children who have or kids who have PlayStation or devices or stuff, and so teaching them how to make money from these items. So getting them to publish these items and become BorrowMe ambassadors by renting it to their friends and neighbors and stuff, and make some money from it. So also teaching them about doing business, but also on board. So that's one of the ideas that he has in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't invest a lot in marketing. Of course, the first mistake I made was around the technology, and I really lost about 6 months in the business because I should have gone straight away to a company that will tailor make.
But you showed the awareness, and you had the ability to pull back on the first attempt, and then go again. Because what some people do is they keep pushing. They don't admit the mistake, right? And they keep pushing the first mistake. Like, what if you were still on Shopify, right?
Yes. Yeah. Now
you pulled it back. So I guess like mistakes are great, really, if you can learn from them.
Absolutely, yeah. So with startups, you need to be persistent, and you need to learn how to pivot. Whatever it is, pivot in your business model. So I could really launch the tourism service.
Yeah.
And maybe it may not work, right? So I need to think about other ideas that will help my business model to do well. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about the future and expansion in the region, but before we get there, a little bit about the industry. So you mentioned the R word, you mentioned recession and things like that, and we've already seen some of the quarterly results come out, and we've seen in the US that people are canceling their subscriptions. Inflation's really high. Cost of household goods are high. So that naturally sort of lends to, borrowing and deal making and things like that, and people watching the pennies and pounds and cents and things like that. So is that like a perfect time to launch a company like yours in the market?
Yeah. So there's definitely an economical factor to what's happening around the world, between Russia and Ukraine, between the increase in inflation, between just recovery from the pandemic that's currently happening.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a big financial burden on everybody's mind, and so allowing individuals who cannot afford certain items to use these items and return once done, it's also quite a nice model as well. And I think pivoting into fintech, whereby allowing you access to items that they need for a short period of time and return when done, without losing too much money on the item itself and making a huge investment, is also quite an important factor. And I think also BorrowMe has not necessarily just it's there to for profitability purposes, but also to help people connect within their communities as well. So for example, while wanting to launch in Saudi, the first segment that I want to target is the communities and the compounds that are very popular in Saudi, and launching something within the community and compounds to get the business up and running. Also, there's definitely an environmental factor as well. Like statistically, when you buy a drill, the lifespan for a drill, the average usage for a drill in its full lifetime is 10 minutes. Because you drill a hole for like a few seconds and that's it. But imagine how much carbon production is being made to make that specific tool, right? And so allowing people to access certain items and helping the environment in a way, it's also quite rewarding.
Interesting. Fascinating. So the startup ecosystem is really interesting in this part of the world at the moment, and there's a lot of interest in fintech, as you said, but there isn't that many interest in the type of companies in the marketplaces and platforms. And mainly that's because, there is Dubizzle, but also what if Kareem and their super app launched this product? Or what if, your friend, your boss's wife that was on Facebook, right? And Facebook can do a lot of these things. So do you see that as a competitor? I know you mentioned competitors in the US, and you might actually mention their names so people can reference, but do you see that there are the competitors to BorrowMe like for like, and then there's the big tech companies who could potentially just flick a switch, update a feature, and enable this type of service?
Correct. I mean, all of these things are competitors and a threat to BorrowMe. And the biggest competitor at the moment is Dubizzle, because people tend to go to Dubizzle to buy the items, and so we want to disrupt the Dubizzle business model. My second competitor is obviously the Facebook communities, but see, the Facebook communities, you need to access specific communities to access these items, and not all items will be available. Maybe the item is available for a neighboring community that you're not part of.
True.
Whether it's a building community, whether it's a location-based community. But having and so Facebook doesn't give you that accessibility to items, and sometimes these items listing gets buried in the discussions. And you want an item, you post about it, and somebody has the item, didn't read the post because they're too busy. So it definitely adds into this. Now about flicking a switch, that's definitely a threat, and Dubizzle could tomorrow flick a switch, and they have the resources and the manpower, but we know they're not going to do it because they're going to cannibalize on their business, which is the selling of items, second-hand item or brand new items on the platform. So
what about Kareem?
Kareem Super App. Kareem Super App is an interesting model. I think Kareem, they are a transportation company at the heart, and now they're trying to provide a lot of fintech and but Kareem is also like famous for doing a lot of acquisitions in the market. So Kareem doesn't start from scratch. When they launched their food app, they went and bought Ram Menu. So we're hoping that at some point Kareem will onboard us as part of their platform, and and grow BorrowMe to the region quite easily with Kareem.
Smart. And then, so what were the names of the companies in the US and Europe?
Sure. So the one in Europe, the big one, is called Fat Llama. Okay. And they also expanded to some regions in the US. The one in the Netherlands is called Peerby. Okay. There's another site in Switzerland called Shirley. The one in the Americas is called Rakafy.
Okay, there's a lot. Are there any in this region?
There are. So one of my competitors called BorrowBlob.
BorrowBlob.
In the region. But that's about it, BorrowBlob. But there are very niche kind of like Easy.
Yeah, we spoke to Easy Lease a few weeks ago on the podcast as well. But they mainly focus on
furniture.
Yeah, they own the furniture, and they let the people who have empty apartments who are staying for a short period of time to lease out the furniture rather than buy it. Yeah,
it's a very specialized kind of model, and I think it's following a trend in India. And the founder trying to bring this into the region, which is quite smart.
Fascinating. Cool. So, you mentioned Saudi and Egypt, and you're obviously originally from Iraq, and Iraq is an interesting market, right? It's people's bet that it'll be the next big one in terms of advertising, and I already know of a couple of e-commerce platforms that just seem to be a lot of appetite for tech platforms there. Would that be on your radar?
Definitely on the radar. In fact, Iraq's economy grown by 22%.
Really? That's an incredible number.
In the last 12 months, thanks to the oil and gas.
Well, this is what, it's interesting you mentioned about, there's a lot of pressure, and I kind of led the question on household income and on inflation and recession around the world. But and it's not nice to see some countries suffer more than others, but the exporters of energy, those countries like the UAE, the economy is doing really well. The Gulf countries and Iraq as well is doing really well at the moment.
It is actually, it's the fast growing economy in the Arab world, faster than even Egypt. And I think it's due to a couple of factors. It was so bad to begin with.
Low base.
Any incremental change will be a huge, significant change for the economy growth, and also the increase in the oil prices. So Iraq is producing a lot of oil at the moment at a very attractive price per barrel. Talking about the ecosystem of startups in Iraq, it continues to evolve. Rocket Internet entered Iraq just recently. They launched a new super app called Belly. There are a couple of e-commerce players. One of them is called Orisdi, which basically I'm an investor in. So definitely Iraq is on the horizon. And I think when the time is right and when the platform is fully Arabized, then it's going to be, I'm going to launch it in Iraq. However, there's one problem with Iraq. It's a cash society. So the credit card penetration is quite low. It's lower than 5%. And with BorrowMe, we would like to digitize the full journey, including payments. So launching in Iraq at this point in time is probably not the right time. But when when the country becomes cashless and credit card becomes widely used, then we will definitely launch there.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned fintech, but there's also lots of fintech startups solving those problems. And the beauty of doing a market by market approach is that in that market, you could probably enable a cash transaction just to kind of get going, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, many people have attempted to convert this. So Zain, the famous telco provider, also provided the cash, Zain Pay. A lot of the telco providers trying to solve this problem. A lot of the fintech players trying to solve the problem. It's some specialized card management companies also starting to launch.
Yeah, like
cards.
They have in Saudi, like MADA and things like that.
Exactly. So for the government employees, they will give them a card, so the salary will onboard the retirement individuals, the pensioners. They get their money uploaded into a card, and by the end of the month, they go and withdraw the money.
Amazing.
But the online payment penetration is very low. There are cash withdrawal. There are ATMs that you can go and collect the cash, but to make a purchase online is not yet enabled.
Okay, interesting. So I think that's one positive thing, right? That as in, there's a lot of room for growth in the region when you see these things, when you see about, whether it's credit card penetration or fintech or, everything like 3G, 5G and things like that. I think when I was working with an agency in Iraq 8, 9, 10 years ago, we were talking about launching 3G, not even 4G, I think, right? And I don't think that, maybe 4G now. So it's interesting the different levels of the different countries. Yeah. But to that point, Nour, you're obviously setting up a startup in this region. In your view, is the Middle East an emerging market that will emerge? And, what do you think needs to happen, or what are the key things that, that needs to happen economically and politically across the region?
Yeah. I think definitely the region is very attractive in terms of the startup ecosystem. And I think in the last 10 years, the leadership of the UAE have made a significant investment in terms of creating and promoting this ecosystem. So you see a lot of incubators evolving in the UAE. You see a lot of free zones. You can establish a company in less a week than a week now. So you can walk into one of these free zones and sign up and have your company registered. Okay. They're creating a platform for fintech startups. So there's a platform in Abu Dhabi, in Abu Dhabi Global Market. There's a platform two platforms actually in Dubai, one in the DIFC and one in the FinTech Hive, which is part of the kind of the DIFC as well. So they building that ecosystem. And surprisingly, and Egypt is also, like Egypt, Pakistan, if you look at these two countries as well, a bunch of startups came from there. And what's happening now with Kitobi, being funded by SoftBank, Swivel went public, and Rami going public. All of these were just simple startups that really evolved, and now they are listed, right? So it's just amazing to see what's happening in the region. My roadmap is to create a concept in the UAE for BorrowMe, and fully automate that concept and make sure that the business is successful, and then take that concept and replicate it in the region.
True. Yeah, it has to work in a market first, doesn't it? I think it's too much of a risk to try and do it in other places.
Absolutely.
And then localize in others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think UAE is a great market. The population is 10.5 million. It's a small population. And so if you discount the laborers, which represent 50% of that population, so really your target market, is around 5.5 million. And so if you launch something and you see it proven to be successful, and then you take it and replicate it to other countries in the Middle East, this will be quite a successful idea. And I think it's a good launching area here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, cool. So what is the product roadmap for the year? Yeah. What are you looking at next?
So what I'm looking next is, first of all, the Arabization of the platform, enhancement of the user experience and the user journey, enablement of the delivery services to be integrated fully with the platform, enablement of the payment to be integrated fully. So you provide an end-to-end kind of a payment platform, and therefore you will have a full service. So you as a user, you like an item, you can have it delivered to your doorstep, you can pay for it online, and you can have it picked up and returned to the user within the same platform.
Okay, so people are planning their Eid breaks now at the moment. Some who are staying at home might listen to this podcast, see some items. Is it ready to go? Can they download the BorrowMe app, and can they upload their items to the marketplace as of today?
So BorrowMe is not an app.
Okay,
it's a website. It's a website. It's fully responsive. There is definitely on the roadmap to develop the app.
Yeah.
But I decided not to develop the app just yet because I wanted to finalize the user experience on the website and make sure all the components are working perfectly fine. In fact, some sites like Upwork, they don't have a mobile app. They just operate on the website itself. So it's a decision I need to make on when to develop the mobile app. But yes, during the Eid holidays, anybody can go to, go to the website, type in whatever item you are looking for, you find the item, you can contact the lender or the seller. You can even book the item directly on the website and then go and pick it up or arrange for a meeting place for you to exchange the item.
Interesting. Well, it's been a pleasure hearing how you've set up the company this morning, and I see good things ahead. So thanks for sharing your story, Nour.
It's my pleasure.
And we'll follow BorrowMe in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I really enjoyed that conversation. We ran over our typical 40-45 minute slot, and Ali, our producer, was whispering in my ear, but I wanted to keep going because there was a lot in what Nour was saying, and he was very transparent about how he's building BorrowMe. So we went up to, I think, about 53 minutes. But yeah, and anyone who is sort of thinking over the Eid break, or whenever you listen to this in the future, they might have an app by then, but it's on the website. And it sounds like a really interesting project. This is a very early stage startup, but there's a lot of exciting opportunities across the region, and I think they're well placed for that. So thank you to Ali for producing, and to Shahir for setting this up as well. And if you're listening on Apple or any other audio app, please do like, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, please do go to smashy.tv, download the app, go on the browser, or check if it's on your smart TV. And if it's not, let us know and we'll get our tech team to put it on that smart TV. It's already on about 4 or 5 of them. All right, cool, thanks. And we'll be back next week at the end of the Eid break on the Friday at 11 a.m. for another interview.